Should we start?
I think we can begin.
Okay. Simranjit, you want me to start, or you want to do like an introduction?
Begin.
I know we can begin right now.
We can begin.
Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to this session from UPES School of Design. I'm Soumitra Bhattacharya, coordinator of graphic design at the School of Design at UPES. School of Design at UPES offers UG and PG programs in creative disciplines taught by really experienced faculty from premier institutes as well as industry experts. We offer product design, transportation design, mobility design, interior and retail space design, fashion design. We also offer graphic design, animation and VFX design, interaction design, and game design. So quite a few. If you want to know further about UPES, you can actually log into the website, which is www.upes.ac.in. Today we have with us a very special guest. Her name is Geeta Suthar. She is the co-founder, COO, and Chief Business Officer at Fraktal Ink Design Studios, with offices in Mumbai, Bangalore, Gurgaon, and the UK. Fraktal Ink is a design studio with diverse offerings in the area of product design, brand design, digital strategy, UI, UX, AR, VR, and much more. These are all, all the latest terms, the buzzwords that we get to hear all the time. Now let's hear from Geeta about her journey, her experience. Meanwhile, you can type in your questions under the Q&A section, and I will take them one by one at the end of the session. We also have some giveaways for you. So the best questions get, something. I mean, that's a surprise. So try to be creative, ask good questions, and over to Geeta. So Geeta, please, this is all yours. Please share with us your experiences.
Thank you. Thank you, Soumitra, and thank you for inviting me to share what little I know about the design industry. And hello, guys. I've been told that a lot of you are looking to come into the world of design. You're probably in your 11th or the 12th. You're very confused about what to do next, or maybe some of you have a lot of clarity that you want to do design, and more power to you. Like Soumitra said, I'm a co-founder of Fraktal Ink Design Studios. We're headquartered in Mumbai and with offices in a few other places. We're an experience design studio. By experience design, if you break it down, and what it actually translates to is UX and UI design, but it is so much more, because when you put the customer at the center of everything, every waking thought that you have, and the experience that a brand provides to that customer, it's a little all encompassing, and that is why it's called experience design and consultancy. But I'm going to take a step back over here and spend a few minutes on my journey and how I got here. I actually have a degree in architecture, which is a little bit of a departure from graphic design or UX and UI design or interaction design or product design, which are natural segues into what we do today. But to me, design actually is problem solving. And any kind of a background that equips you to break down a problem into its components, to think about what each of those problems means, how it needs to be solved, and whatever vehicle you actually use to solve those is design. And so I was able to actually move from architecture into graphic design, into interior design, into interaction design and experience design quite easily, quite seamlessly, because that's what that's what a design education of any sort does for you. Helps you think, helps you break down problems and look at it in a different way. So after I finished my architecture, I did practice interior design for a while. I taught architecture for a little while. I had my own column in Property Times and the Times of India for a couple of years, where I used to write. So I've done a lot of things before I settled in on what I call home now, because it's been about 20 years since Fraktal Ink has been, it occupies about 90% of my waking time. So it's home to me. I'm sure you don't know what Fraktal Ink is. In the design world, in the experience design world, in this country, we're sort of famous. But I don't expect you to know that. But I want to take some time now to take you through some of the work that we have done to help you understand what experience design is. Though there are many design, different kinds of design that you could opt for. I think this session will kind of reserve for graphic design and user experience design, because that's what I know best. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to wait for 30 seconds and hope that all of you can see it. Soumitra, is it visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, guys, so this is my office. This is the Fraktal Ink Studio in Mumbai. And we're very friendly people. We're very colorful people, which is why you're greeted with a nice big hello as soon as you enter. And it's a very open office. I'm going to show you a few pictures of the studio. Right. And right. Like I said, it's an open office, but we do need to do a lot of meetings and discussions with clients, which is why we have these little pods. We have 5 of them, as you can see the 5th one here, where 4 to 6 people can actually get together. You have a nice large screen. You can either discuss amongst yourselves or take calls with clients. This is one corner where we encourage people to leave their computers behind, come with their papers and pencils and sketch and get in touch with the way of thinking that they have done when they were in college. This is also where we brainstorm, we have fun. That's the stage. It's when we need to have town halls, everybody gathers over here. The stage has also been used for sleeping when there's a lot of work and people stay in the office overnight to finish that work. So they catch their 40 winks there. That's the experience lab. That's where we set up our AR and VR and a little bit of IoT kind of experiments that we have done, projects that we have done. That's what we like to showcase over there. Encourage our team to go inside and just play around with whatever's over there. Food is extremely important, and I know all of you will agree. Food and fun is very important. These are the mugs that we had at Fraktal, where the team contributed to what they wanted on the mugs. So these are actually things that either the team says quite a lot or what the clients say quite a lot. So I won't even claim to know I know all the lingo. I feel you, bro. I don't know what that means, but I've heard that in the studio quite a lot. And I want a logo like Apple is one of the most common things really that a client can say to us, and we've immortalized it in the form of mugs. We're about 120 people with almost 100 designers, some front-end engineers. By front-end engineers, I mean HTML, CSS kind of people, and the rest is management and support staff. Because we're we do only experience design. We actually don't do any social media, or we don't do any marketing. For this kind of design that we do, we're one of the largest in the country. And I've already said before, we call ourselves an experience design and consultancy, and I'll come to the consultancy bit. This is the service map. So largely everything that we do, the first line is bread and butter to us. It's digital strategy, user experience, user interface. We also have a user research team. We have a usability studies lab in the office. Because like I've mentioned before, the user or the customer, the end customer, is at the center of everything that we do. The second line is support services. We don't usually do the second line as standalone projects. If it's a larger engagement and somebody also needs product design, or also needs brand design, or also needs motion graphics, then we have a small team that actually caters to all of these. And the last line is technology that is used to be cutting edge. Now IoT and AR VR is par for the course. But those are things that we do, which is tech enabled technology that enables experience to go up a notch. I just want to show you a little video about life in the studio, so you kind of get a insight into what that is. Oh, I miss that so much. Having office has, because of the lockdown and everything, we haven't been to the office in about a year. Another small piece is we were acquired about 5 years ago by the Denso Aegis network. So we're part of a much larger network. We did this so that we could access larger projects, be part of bigger stories. As a smaller
Sorry, I think Geeta is having connection problem. Just please wait for a little bit. She'll log back. Please give us a moment. Geeta, are okay, okay, not a problem.
Till the time we can get her back online, here's a short video for you to watch.
UPES School of Design this and it welcomes you to a new world of
Yeah, I think
exceptional aesthetics. The school has been established with the intent of nurturing creativity so that it gels harmoniously with innovation and futuristic vision.
UPES has given me the chance to live closer to nature, and it has been a great experience as a design student, being amongst the trees, the beauty. It's really picturesque and I love it here.
Design school is one out of so many schools which can encourage a multidisciplinary perspective of your studies. Means that designers can actually take inspiration from the other fields also.
I think they have created a very fertile ground for all the students who are in the creative field of design. Now it is up to the students to utilize it the best and work with a purpose.
UPES School.
okay. I think Geeta is back. So, okay, let's start.
Yeah, I am so sorry.
No problem.
So while the studio does work in a lot of different verticals, banking and the financial sector is something that we actually absolutely specialize in. And I've picked 2 or 3 projects that we've done for different banks to kind of give you a flavor of what kind of projects that can be and what kind of thinking you actually need to bring to the table. This is the Aditya Birla Payments Bank. Unfortunately, the bank itself shut down about a year and a half ago. But I'm still going to talk about it because it is a very different project that came. First of all, it's not a regular bank. It's a payments bank, which means that the rules and regulations around this are completely different from a regular bank. One of the biggest differences is that they cannot make money by lending you money and charging you an interest for it. All of the money that they make needs to be based on transactions. So it was actually part of a design problem to figure out how we can make the bank a business success. It wasn't just designing screens or designing journeys. It was a much more fundamental problem than that. How do you make a business really work, and how does design contribute to it? Plus, the audience for this was very different. This was part of the government's initiative to bank the unbanked. So we're talking about, the smaller villages, where people who are intimidated by banks, and how do you make them open bank accounts and get financial discipline into their lives. So this was another challenge. So they came to us with two challenges. The bank itself did not know the answers to both. And what we did in the course of over a year was actually brainstorm with the business team at the bank, did a lot of research on the ground, spoke to literally hundreds of people, both in villages and towns, to understand their relationship to money, and what they need it for, how they spend it, how they save it, where their problems are. And we came to the final service offering. The two things that we did were, one was, we tapped into grocery network, which is out of these towns and villages, when we realized that these guys were their banks. I mean, all of the villagers had a relationship with the grocery guy who they would have an account with or a khata with, and these khatas would be settled once in a month, once in 2 months, depending on their relationship. So what we did was we actually roped in this network of grocery stores, put a banking terminal in those stores, and trained them to be the banks, to help them make their customers comfortable with downloading an app, and making these little transactions. And of course we did, they got a cut for it, they got some money out of it. And the second thing that we did was, all kinds of bill payments, all kinds of, also in these villages, Amazons and the Jabongs and the Mintras don't really reach those. So even if they have money, they don't really know how to access some goods that we take for granted. So we actually enabled shopping, we enabled booking of railway tickets, bus tickets, built all those partnerships. And this would then increase the number of transactions on the banking platform, and hence the bank would make money. So it was a very, very different project than just making your current account, savings account, and loan journeys and things like that. And this is what, as a designer, it actually thrills you and gives you an immense amount of satisfaction to be able to problem solve at this level. ICICI Bank came to us with another problem, saying that even though they have a very mature digital system, they have a fabulous portal, they still have a lot of walk-ins and queues in front of their teller. And they wanted to reduce the number, the queue, and maybe then reduce the number of tellers itself. And for that, they have in some of the branches, if in ICICI Bank, if you go today, you'll see these Insta banking kiosks where they had some 60, 70 odd services, from depositing money to depositing a check to whatever. And nobody was actually using this, even though the ecosystem existed. Because of the way it was designed, because they crowded in a lot of services and nobody really knew what to do, and it was scary looking. So again, we did a little bit of research and found out that there were basically 6 or 8 transactions which accounted for about 85% of all, of the entire populace which actually lined up. So we brought that into focus. We concentrated on making those 6 to 8 journeys really seamless, very, very easy to use. And we actually saw adoption. We saw the lines coming down in front of tellers. We saw that this was being used quite a lot. So again, it's a specific problem that you solve, and that's what when you are able to realize that design goes so much beyond pretty looking screens. We also do a lot of work internationally. Mauritius, the Bank of Mauritius, or MCB, has been a customer. I think this is the 4th year in a row. We partnered with them. They brought us on board when they started their digital transformation journey. And while we've done their regular website, and we've done their current account and saving account and loan journeys and all of the others that banks normally do, the one thing that actually they did very differently was by SMEs there, I'm talking about small and medium business enterprises. So they thought that this group of business people were very underserved in Mauritius. And again, it led us to do a lot of research, speak to a lot of people on the ground. And yes, our designers did spend years together in Mauritius, and they still thank us for it. And they spoke to the people, got to know them, and they created applications, ecosystems, communities, portals, all which was specifically meant for SMEs. Another thing that the team is extremely proud of is onboarding or opening an account for an SME used to take about 4 weeks, and they brought it down to 2 days, right? So this is looking at systems, looking at what kind of data is required, where that data really goes, where it's stored, why it is required, regulations around it, which actually makes it take so much time, and how can you go around it and streamline that process. So we took it down from 3 to 4 weeks to 2 days, and this is an achievement that we're very proud of. And that again is the power of design. That is what good design can actually do. More screens from there. This is for a fintech. It's not really a bank. Startup in the fintech space. They wanted to again serve the SME market. They wanted to finance them, give them access to loans. But of course, it's a very crowded space because there's a huge number of fintechs who are trying to do this. But they did identify, the client did identify one differentiator for themselves, which is they realize that they have a very good network of chartered accountants. And they were like, how can we leverage chartered accountants to give us access to these SMEs or the end users? And what we did was we studied that ecosystem. We looked at how loans can originate from a chartered accountant, how a chartered accountant can actually, because he knows his customers and their finances really well, how can he actually look at the risk of giving that customer how much money? And we designed that entire front end where between Neogin and the chartered accountant, between the chartered accountant and his customer, and the back end where all of the documents were uploaded, they were studied, they were financed. So again, this was a very different kind of project that we did. Besides banking, automotive is another area that we do a lot of work in. And I want to talk about just one project that we've done over there for Mahindra and Mahindra. I'm sure all of you have walked into a car showroom at some point. If not walked into one, you've actually seen one from the outside. And these places are massive because they have at least 4 or 5 cars sitting over there. They have places where people can sit and discuss and fill in forms and all of that. And they're usually 6,000 to 8,000 square feet in area. And what Mahindra and Mahindra wanted to do, at least for the smaller towns, was bring this footprint down to 2,000 square feet. And they came to us and said, how can digital experience help us bring down the footprint, but not take away anything from the experience? So there was, we looked at the entire customer journey from, when they would walk into the store, when they would go away and maybe do some research on a website, when would they come back? And if they came back, could we remember the data the showroom had already had with them? Can we enable them to experience the outside and the inside of a car without the car actually being there? How can it be immersive? So that's when we actually used, the AR and the VR, because a lot of the times these technologies are actually used as gimmicks. And it's hard to find places where they actually make a difference. And over here, it did. We actually used VR glasses to actually take the entire showroom to a customer's house if they wanted. And very, very interesting project. We had a multi-touch table where we made little, how if you wanted to buy a car, you would compare the car that you were considering with other cars in that segment. And that's a very important part of the journey and the decision-making process. So we had these tiny little models of 4 or 5 cars of each segment. We put that model on this multi-touch table, and that would suddenly bring up all of the information about that car. And the more cars that you would put on the table, the more information would come and it would align itself and you could actually compare the cars. So it was very playful, it was very engaging, but it actually served a purpose as well. We've done an app for Mahindra Electric. This is electric cars actually come with hardware installed in them, which will tell you where they are, what speed they're going at, how much further they can go before they lose charge, where are the nearest charging stations, what speed they're going at, and if your if your parents ever had this car and you borrowed it, then they would be able to restrict how fast you could go, or they would get an alert if you went outside of certain boundaries. So looking, looking of using this piece of hardware and the kind of data it gave, that was the problem solving over here. Because that device is there, it's there in the car, and we know that it gives you these 8 pieces of data. How do you actually use those 8 pieces of data to create an experience, to add value to the customer? And again, that was a lot of fun doing more of that. Moving to one retail project that we did. We partnered with Raymond for about, I think 3 years. Again, it was a long journey because this was a digital transformation. Raymond is a hugely successful brand, right? And I'm sure all of us have heard of it and have walked into a Raymond showroom at some point or the other. But 3-4 years ago, when we started working with them, their problem statement was, we're losing market ground because we manufacture textiles, manufacture fabric, and nobody has the patience to actually buy fabric and get things tailored now. Raymond does have some brands which are ready-mades. There's Parks and Park Avenue and Color Plus, but it's a small portion. Once upon a time, they were the market leaders in fabric. So how do we get back mind space? How do we get people to even consider buying textiles and tailoring it for use? Was one of the problem statements that we came up with. And our solutions were, nobody in India knows men's fashion the way you do, at the scale that you do. And we're not talking about fashion designers, but we're talking about men's fashions at the kind of spread and depth that Raymond knows, because they have literally hundreds of thousands of shops and customers. So we built the entire experience around advisory, and we try to bring back the romance of tailoring. We talked about how custom tailored clothes were just so much more desirable than getting clothes off the rack. We also built an Uber for tailors. An Uber by Uber for tailors. We looked at the ecosystem that Raymond had. Each shop had at least 3 or 4 tailors associated with that shop. And Raymond, the kind of brand it is, I don't think you can drive in a city for more than 2-3 kilometers without coming across a Raymond shop. So it's that kind of penetration that they had, those many tailors that they had in their network. So we created an Uber for tailors, and we made an app and a website which said, okay, customers, you don't really have to have only Raymond fabric. If you have any fabric at home, go onto this platform, book a tailor, your house, take your measurements, and consult with you and tell you what looks good and what doesn't look good. And he'll come back for fittings and he'll come back to deliver. So those, and Raymond was a fabulous customer because they were willing to experiment along with us. And we built experiences for made to measure, where every suit, I think the minimum price is 35,000 rupees, to the regular, 400 rupees a meter, and 2 meters gets you a shirt kind of a. So that the range that they have, the kind of audience that they have, the kind of experiences that we had to design and build to cater to these different kinds of audiences, keeping their business requirements and their problems and their challenges in mind, but never forgetting who the customer is, who the consumer is, and what they want out of the brand. So these are some of the things that we've done for Raymond. Custom tailoring is the and decor. I'm hoping that all most of you would have heard of Decor as a brand. They're the country's largest manufacturers of upholstery and curtain material. They also came to us with a whole set of problems. Their problem was a very ironical one, because they have about 20,000 designs, and it was their pride and joy, right? I mean, they loved the fact that they have 20,000 designs, but that was also their problem. And the problem was that they never could surface the right designs when the customer was looking for them. If you have 20,000, I mean, you can't go into a shop and see 20,000 samples. So what we designed for them was a series of questions, a series of exercises, very gamified, where if you walk into a store, you could help you identify fabric, the genre of fabric that you are looking for, and then start and give you price points, give you the kind of care that it needed, and then surface a smaller selection of fabrics for you to choose from. That was just one of the many things that we did for them. But again, specific problem, specific solution. And also, I mean, as tools, we built fabric calculators, because there were situations where somebody loved a fabric and spent 2 hours and finalized one fabric. And then when they looked at the price, they were like, oh, this is out of my budget. And it happens very, very often. So a fabric calculator, very quickly, you know what the price is, you know how much fabric is going to, you're going to need for either, a curtain for a particular window, or a sofa, which is this long. And you didn't have to spend a lot of time. This was part of your selection process. This kind of looks very intimidating. It's a lot of data, but we also really love working on enterprise level design. This is for CRM Next. It's one of the largest and the most popular CRM softwares for banks in India and in the US. And when they came to us, honestly, that this interface looked like a little better than an Excel. And over a course of 3 or 4 years, we've been able to completely transform the entire experience, so much so that now they win business because of the design that the software has. And I'm saying this because we actually walked into a meeting with IDBI Bank, where CRM Next had just signed up IDBI, and they some customization to understand what customization they needed. And the CTO, or the Chief Technology Officer over there, met with us and said, oh, so you guys are the reason why CRM Next got our business. So it's, I think one of the happiest days in our lives, because this is a true measure of success. More enterprise level stuff. This is a company called Vistar. They're based in the US, but they have a development center here in India. They have something called a pricing solution. So you have the likes of Coke and Nike and some very large music companies on this platform. And what it does is help them understand their competition. And now let's say Nike says that, Reebok is going on sale, and they're putting this, these shoes on sale, and sale of 10%, 50%, whatever. How is it going to impact our market? And what should our response be in order to stay competitive? Very different. It takes you to the innards of business and see what their challenges are, and to understand. And this is why, I've been doing this for 20 years, and every day of those 20 years has been wonderful, because you learn something new every day, because of the kind of industries, the width of industries that you work with. And design has come center stage, right? I don't think there's ever been a better time to be a designer than now. And because you get a seat at the table. If you're talking to the CXOs, you're talking to the CEOs, you're the CMOs, the CTOs, the CIOs, and you understand different businesses from the perspective of all of your dozens of clients, and you learn and you grow, and you take that learning and you apply it in other situations that you come across. Like I said, I love what I do. I'm going to skip that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the opportunities for design going forward. I've shown you what Fraktal Ink has been doing in the last 4 or 5 years, and that I'm sure gives you some amount of idea of what you have to look forward to out there. But I want to talk a little bit about what is yet to come. This is very topical because we are still in the middle of COVID. And at the beginning of this, maybe about 9 months ago, there is a robotics company in Wuhan, where they put together, they made a robot for the COVID hospital in Wuhan, and they sent about 12 robots over there. And what these robots were able to do was, without needing human intervention, they were able to go in and take temperatures of all of the patients. They were able to take the food trays away and put new food trays, change the water, some basic functions, but it actually reduced human-to-human contact, which at the beginning of COVID, we were all so very scared, right? We didn't want to go anywhere near a patient. And this really helped. So it's one piece of technology, but think about what kind of opportunities there are for design in this. A product designer will actually design the robot itself, because I mean the robot is actually just software, right? But a product designer gives a graphic designer would brand the robot and the service. Interaction design, a data visualizer would look at all of the data that a robot is collecting and put it into an interface where doctors who are remote would be monitoring all of this. How do they see trends? How do they see whether the temperatures are spiking or coming down, what a person has eaten, and how do you correlate how a person is feeling to the amount of water he or she has drunk? So all of that is, you take a whole dump of data and then you visualize it in a way that a doctor is able to look at it and easily understand it and react that much faster. So that's, then there is the job for a UX designer and a UI designer, which is like interaction design, make the interfaces. There'd be an interface where the robot is actually entering the data. There's an interface where the doctors are consuming it. So one piece of technology, and look at the opportunities for design that are in that. Digital humans as service providers, where you go to a teller, you go to a you go to a shop where there's you need a salesperson. We're going to eventually have all of these panels or robots again giving you the service, right? And as humans evolve and take better and better, and I don't know about better, but at least go from being blue collar to white collar even more, we're looking at a situation where probably nobody really wants to be a salesperson. And then you have these kind of interfaces. They will always be polite. They'll never be not in the mood. They will never lose patience. They will always have the data that you want. And they will tell you, even if you ask 100 questions, they'll tell you, give you 100 answers. So again, it's a job for a voice experience designer. It's a job for interaction design. It's a job for graphic design and UI design. So that's another piece of technology that I'm quite excited about. Given the I don't know how many of you know about Industry 4.0. Basically, it is for manufacturing, the manufacturing industry, and how technology is going to actually change that in the future. Now, so Microsoft has actually come up with a new platform. It's an open platform. It's an open source platform with a lot of tools where developers can actually use those tools to make products, software products, and put it back onto the platform. And people can use it. you go to that platform, look at what there is already, the building blocks are there. And some small manufacturer in Nagpur, for instance, does not really have the budgets to build a product ground up, but can go to this platform, look around and see what tools are available, pick some of the tools, and then put a layer of customization around it, or build a little bit on top of this, and actually apply it to make a huge difference to his own business. And for every piece of technology that there is, it can't be consumed without a designer's intervention, because we are at the cusp of technology, of software, and the humans. We understand this on one hand and this on the other, and we're the ones who make them talk to each other. This small town in Germany, which actually created a 3D model of the entire town they had budgets. Germany has budgets for these kind of things, and they actually did it as a tourism gimmick. And once the 3D model was ready, suddenly it opened up possibilities to be used in so many different ways. The town planners started using them, the public utility guys started using them. So this was a 3D model which was fun, and suddenly there was a use for it, and it was designers who came up with the interfaces that were necessary to suddenly open this up for consumption in many, many different ways. I've mentioned before that AR and VR usually very gimmicky, and it's still not a very intrinsic part of the customer journey. But over here, there is a fabulous use headsets where, when we think of airports, we think about these very large, busy places with dozens of planes, coming in and taking off every hour. But in the West, there are hundreds of airfields which are very, very small, which just have one runway, which cater to very small planes. And it's, the air traffic control towers that we have in our airports, they can't really, it's not sustainable for each one of those airfields to have an air control tower. So they've used the VR technology, and one person sitting remotely can actually monitor a dozen airports or 20 airports, so that it's actually being put to real use in real time. And of course, it needs a lot of high speed data, which is why it's successful where 5G is a reality. But yes, I mean, this is also what design does. It is technology married with design that enables these kinds of experiences. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who struggle with weight, right? And I know that every week, at least once or twice, I step on my weighing scale, and sometimes it's kind to me and sometimes it's not. And every time it's not, and damn, maybe I should have soup for dinner instead of, aloo paratha. And but that's not really great for health, right? Because you're not supposed to panic every time the weighing scale goes up a couple of kilos. So there's this bath mat which tracks your weight, and it tracks your posture, and it does not display anything, so that you're not reacting to it on a day-to-day basis, but it will record and it will show you trends. But what is even better is, because of the weight distribution and the way you're standing on the mat, it calculates your posture and sends that data back to our app, and the app tries and helps you correct your posture. So these are the kind of things that, the very small little problems, right? But it's trying to understand the psychology of a human, of the consumer, and seeing what technologies are available to address those problems. And you've come up with a whole new product which is marketable, which becomes a business. And again, it takes a designer to think of this. Again, the thinking can also come from a product guy, but it definitely takes a designer to visualize and to make it a reality. So I hope I've actually made all of you excited about a career in design, I just want to take maybe the last 2 or 3 minutes to talk about what a designer of tomorrow needs to be. They need to be T-shaped hybrid designers who work across functions. Now, I know that's a lot of words which might not make sense, but what it essentially means is, as a designer, you should have a view into a lot of different things, and you should understand technology, you should understand customers, you should understand research, you should understand usability, you should understand graphic design, you should understand customer journeys, all of that. But you also need to have one or two things that you are very, very good at. So there have to be a couple of things that you have a depth of knowledge in, but you really need to understand the world around you. As a designer, from politics to geography to history to current events, all of that actually feeds into what kind of a designer you become. Empathy. I don't know how I've talked about how a customer or the consumer is at the center of everything that you design. How can you understand this customer or this consumer? That's because you have to have empathy. You have to be able to walk in their shoes very, very easily and understand what their requirements are. You have to have an analytical bent of mind. You need to be able to look at the problem, break it down, look at what they actually mean and how they can be solved. Ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn, I think it's one of the most important things that we have today, because the world is moving and changing at the pace that it is. And what is true and absolute today, 2 years from now, will not be relevant at all. So the mindset that you need to have is that you're learning on a daily basis, and you have to be able to unlearn whatever you thought of as gospel. You need to be able to let go of that and say that, okay, the new truth is out there and let me adopt that. Great communication skills. This I cannot emphasize enough on, because at the end of the day, when you have a client, and most of us will, you have to be able to talk about your ideas. You have to be able to convince them of the ideas. You have to be able to talk about the genesis, the thought process, and why and where you have reached. And you have to be able to communicate all of this in a very nice way. And communication skills does not mean really great English. It means having a clarity of thought and to be able to articulate that clarity that you have into words in whatever language you have. In India, I would say that we always start off speaking in English to a client, but as soon as there is comfort, we actually switch to English, because that is our reality. That is what we are most comfortable with. And it's only when we actually get to English with a customer do we start to build a relationship with him. So I'm saying communication skills does not really need to be English. It needs to be articulation. And the last is a collaborative spirit. The standalone designer can only do small projects. The reach can be very small. If you want to do larger projects, if you want to actually make a difference and an impact, you have to work in large teams. And by large teams, I don't mean just more designers, but you need to be able to talk to research people. You need to be able to talk to psychologists. You need to be able to talk to Scrum Masters. You need to be able to talk to developers. You need to be able to talk to testers. And you need to be able to work with all of them in a collaborative way in order to meet timelines and to deliver the best product that you possibly can. And yeah, and I think that brings me to the end of what I wanted to say. Open to questions.
So, Geeta, that was fantastic hearing you about your journey, your experience. I'm sure all of our students here, everyone who is attending, they must be really thrilled to hear all this, and such amazing work you showed us. I mean, you've done such a variety of work, in all different kinds of areas. I think you have answered most of the questions that I thought I will ask you. What I will do is there are some
Okay.
questions from students, and there's something interesting that I wanted to ask generally to you as well. So he says, where do you get your design inspiration? This is Aditya Datta, and he says, where do you get your design inspiration from? And the second question from him is graphic design field profitable? So, I mean, or rather we could say, if design, does design make you rich? I mean, or
Well, it's made me rich, and it can actually give you a very, very comfortable living. There's different scales of rich, right? But maybe what I can tell you is some idea of salaries that are out there for you to take. If you come out of a design school as a fresh graduate, you can possibly look at maybe a 30 to 40,000 rupees a month. If you are very good at your work, and after a certain point, your growth actually depends on how good you are. The number of years of experience certainly, is a measure, but it's very easy to kind of accelerate your growth in the design industry if you're very, very good at what you do. So some of the most senior people in terms of the thinking and what they bring to the table at Fraktal Ink maybe just have about 8 to 10 years of experience. And they are the second rung of management, and they make upward of 30 lakhs plus incentives. So I think it's a decent amount of money. If you freelance or you start up your own company, the challenges are different. It's very, very stressful because cash flows, and then then there's a whole different thing and thing that you need to understand and work on, and where design becomes just a very small part of your daily life, and then admin takes over, and HR takes over, and finance takes over. But yeah, there are several design companies which do really well, and gives you a luxurious lifestyle. Yes, it can. What was the first question, Soumitra?
that was, where do you get your design inspirations?
From reading, from interaction, from Pinterest, from all of these websites that as students that you look at. So design, there's a difference, at least in my mind, there's a difference between being an artist and being a designer. An artist works with inspiration and for himself or herself. A designer is working within a brief with constraints, and the constraints could be what your client wants, what the customer wants, what technology is able to give. I'll go back to the Aditya Birla Payments Bank example that I gave you, where we were catering to villagers. I'd love to be able to design like a fabulous app for them where they're engaged. But the reality of the situation is, in the villages, the internet sucks. So I'm going to have to, bring it down and make a very, very basic interface, because the data needs to come back and forth. So a designer keeps all of these constraints in mind, looks at what people are doing, and then the layer of inspiration is just that. It's one layer of inspiration on how you make it look and how you make it feel. But otherwise, you're doing problem solving. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. There is Ritvik Trivedi. He asked, he has done mechanical engineering, and he was wondering if he, for a master's in product design, should he go for a university or an institute in India or abroad, which will be a better deal for him?
There are some excellent schools in India, and I know that master's programs actually do intake a lot of students with an engineering background, and they do really well. We had several engineers who actually came to Fractal just after their engineering degrees, and they went through training and they became fabulous designers. But having said all of that, education abroad gives you a kind of opens up your mind and kind of gives you an outlook that does add a certain something in the way you approach problems and problem solving. Usually some people who have undergrad degree in design from India, I would say try and get a couple of years of work experience and then go abroad for a master's. But since you have an engineering background, I think there are some courses which are shorter, maybe 6 months to a year, which gives you the base of design. Maybe do that over here and then go abroad for a master's. You may have a little bit of trouble switching from engineering to a master's in design because one would assume, the universities abroad may assume that you already know a few things, and there may be a little bit of a very steep learning curve for you over there. If you're up for it, then great. If you want to ease your way a little bit, then look for these shorter courses which introduce you to the base of design and then go abroad.
Rupali, she asks, this is very interesting. She's like, which were your failures? So any experiences like those?
Yeah, sure. There are of course failures. Some failures are in the HR department. I'm talking about running a business. In running a business, sometimes the challenges of running the business kind of takes over your life, and sometimes you're not sensitive to your own team. And quickly learn from that. But yes, there were. I talk about empathy and how important it is, and sometimes the empathy doesn't extend to people who are right around you. You're thinking so much about people who are far away. There have been failures with customers where there have been shouting matches in the office, where the customer expects the sun, the moon, the stars, and doesn't understand our challenges. And we've had a few shouting matches over there. But people say that I have a chip on my shoulder, but I think it's okay. It's okay to stand up for what you think is right and have the courage of your convictions. There have been failures in business where in 20 years of running this, we've gone through 2 cycles where the global economy went down and went down really badly. One was, I don't even know if you guys will remember, but there was a dot-com bust where there was just no business to be had, and we had to let go of some people. That to me was a big failure. Not being able to take care of my people was a big failure.
Okay, that was interesting. There is Pratik, who says he's from MDes Industrial Design. Whether a client comes up for a solution he has already had a problem with, or do you suggest, it's, I think, sort of that kind of a question. So, I mean, what was your experiences in...
So Pratik, you heard of design thinking workshops? I think more and more engagements start with a design thinking workshop where the customer already has some ideas. They come with like a long list of possible solutions of what needs to be done next. And the design team goes into this workshop with some benchmarks, with some research already having taken place. And then you put together a framework in which you discuss the problems, you look at different scenarios, You maybe, if there are enough people in the workshop, you break away into smaller groups. Every group does a little bit of brainstorming, comes up with possible solutions. You put it all together, and then you whittle it down to what makes absolute sense. So it's not that a customer actually expects the designer to have all the answers. Sometimes the customer does, and you need to then we educate them and say that, you know, we're designers. If we knew the solutions to all your problems, we'd probably run your business, right? And and then you make them understand that it is something that we need to work on together. And that's the way most mature customers actually do. They're very open to collaboration. They're very open to brainstorming. They actually look forward to it. The CEOs and the COOs of companies actually will make time for this. Sometimes a design thinking workshop is 4 hours. Sometimes it's 2 days, and we insist that you put your phones off and sit in this workshop, because if it's important that we understand each other really well, because we have 2 years to work together.
Yeah. Okay, Geeta, I think we have a ton of questions, and I don't think we have time to answer all of those. I'll just take one more, which is from Ravi Chandrika Yadav. And she asks, have you ever faced a situation where a brand rejected your design?
Of course, happens all the time, and which is why we actually have this. We give 3 design options, and then we actually iterate on it several times to actually come up with the final design. Design is very subjective, right? The Mera Wala pink is up there. I mean, sometimes we would love a design, and the customer would not love it. Several times in the 3 options or the 4 options that we've given, we actually make options for rejection, saying that ye to reject ho jayega, and the customers actually pick that up and shit now to work with this and take it forward. So there have been lots of situations where the customer has said, we don't like this, go back to the drawing board, and we've gone back to the drawing board because we are here to actually make sure that the customer is happy. But we've had situations where we've actually parted ways with the customer, saying that our sensibilities and yours just doesn't match. Not that yours is bad or ours is bad, it's just it just doesn't match. So maybe maybe we won't make each other happy, and it's best to part ways.
Yeah, okay. So Geeta, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your experiences. This was amazing. Thanks again, and I think we can close this.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've had fun. Thanks.
Thank you very much.